Executive Director of the Loop CID, the Community Improvement District. Carrie has over 25 years of experience in urban planning, economic development, and marketing. She was formerly the head of the district, the Downtown Columbia CID, where she spearheaded numerous projects, including the removal of the Broadway canopies and the placement of Downtown Columbia on the National Register of Historic Places. Carrie is currently working to revitalize the business loop with the Como Cooks Shared Kitchen and a $2 million grant partnership with the City of Columbia for road improvements. Welcome, Carrie.
Thank you so much for having me. This is a great chance to just have a little update on what we've been doing. We're doing our annual meeting next week, and I've been putting together our annual report. So, as you probably know, looking back over the last year, as the pre-conversation indicated, it's been quite a roller coaster. So, and I'm happy right now. Everything's landing in the right spot, but I can talk a little bit about our back and forth on the grant and where we're going to go in the future. So I always start by reminding people about kind of what we do and what area we're in charge of. We're basically the business loop, every property that fronts the business loop from the roundabout at West, which is Aldi, to College, which is Arch and Columns. Um, and so we've got about a mile and a half stretch of the business loop here. And I probably don't have to tell you folks that the business loop has been neglected for decades. I think at one time, I've been looking at the history of the street because the 100-year anniversary of Highway 40 is next year. And so we'd like to do a lot of stuff about the history of Highway 40 and how that evolved and how it became the business loop. And there was a heyday at some point, and it certainly hasn't been recently. So we kind of all came together to say, what can we do to really kind of revive and improve a street that has a lot of history for Columbia and I think still has so much value. It's still a really strong commercial center for Columbia, but it's not very welcoming. We've got 3 exits off I-70 that and we're not really putting our best foot forward. It doesn't look great. And so our goal was to see, okay, how do we fix up this street and make something of it? So we've got 2 big goals. One is environment and the other is economy. And environment, again, I probably don't have to explain that involves adding sidewalks, undergrounding power lines, adding landscaping, beautifying the street, making it a street that Columbians can be proud of, but also that they can use. We've got a high school on the street. We've got Mac Community College, which has more students here than in Moberly, and both schools have to run across 5 lanes of traffic in order to get lunch, and it's just not the way we really want to do the street. So on that side, we pulled together a consulting firm right when we created the organization, brought a lot of people in to say, what do you want to see? And it was a no-brainer. They want to see trees and landscaping and sidewalks and bike lanes. But what this group of folks also did was they gave us these threshold projects, like quick wins. Like, what can we do as an organization right now to show that we're really committed to the street and really turn the street into something that Columbia would start paying attention to? And so a couple big projects we did right away. We built a pop-up park. We had a vacant lot. Boone Electric owned it. They weren't using it for anything, and they said, build a park. And we got 200 volunteers out on a Saturday, and we built a park. And now we have once a month, we have kids events there. We have local bands who reserve it so that they could play music. So it was instantly like getting the community involved in beautifying the street. We also did a bike repair station. We have a bike boulevard that actually goes from the MKT trail all the way up to Parkade Plaza. And so we put a bike repair station there. And then we did banners all along the length of the street. And if there's anything that really, I think, brightened up the area and really showed people that we're kind of all in this together, it was the banners. So those were what we could do. It's a MoDOT street. And as you probably know, MoDOT doesn't have a lot of funding for what they consider city streets. We've got a lot of streets in Columbia that are MoDOT run. Um, Range Line and College and Providence and parts of Broadway, all MoDOT run. So, you know, they don't have money for sidewalks, you know, crosswalks, things like that. So we've been stuck for a while, trying to make something happen with an organization that doesn't have money and doesn't have the standards that the city of Columbia has. And what I think Columbians expect a street to have: minimal sidewalks, crossing buttons that you press so you can cross safely. So we went to the city and said, look, we reached a standing point, a walls essentially. We're never going to get anywhere unless we've got the city as a partner. So the city said, okay, we'll talk to MoDOT about taking it over, which is like, great. So they went to MoDOT and MoDOT goes, sure, you can take over the street. And the city goes, how much money are you going to give us? And MoDOT goes, none. So the city kind of went out and they lifted, you know, manholes and checked the sewers and the pipes and looked at the sidewalks. And they basically said, there's so much deferred maintenance on the street. We cannot afford as the city to fix it up. But here's what we'll do. There's a lot of federal money. This was, we started, I guess, 3 years ago with this. A lot of federal money coming out with the infrastructure bill. And they said, look, we'll team up with you. We'll do some grant writing. And the goal was to start with a planning grant. And this isn't like a concept plan. This is engineering documents. Where does the sidewalk go? Where do we start to dig? So it would give us a shovel ready plan. So we submitted that. The folks at US Department of Transportation said it was a great application. They said we hit it out of the park. We got all perfect scores, and they gave us a little over $2 million to do this plan. The city says we'll kick in $500,000, and then our organization is kicking in a little bit too. So this was the chance we had to really improve the street. Hang on, somebody just walked in my office. Can I help you? I'm on the call. What do you need? Yes, go all the way back. All the way back. There's a sign on the door. Thank you. Sorry about that. So we got a $2 million grant to really do the planning. The whole idea is it's a multi-year process. We'll get the documents. It'll be a shovel-ready project. It was frozen this last January. As you know, a lot of federal grants were frozen. We were hopeful. We did a lot of lobbying. Not sure how effective that was. We had a lot of people writing letters. I mean, there's not a person in Columbia who doesn't want to see the business loop fixed up. And they unfroze it. So we kind of went forward. We hired a consultant. We've got a good engineering team. And then they canceled it again. So this was a reconnecting communities and neighborhood grant, and it was a grant specifically designed for communities who are negatively impacted by federal highway programs. So, as you know, I-70 came through Columbia, throughout a lot of neighborhoods, cut the city in half, and it cut the business loop in half. So now we have neighborhoods on the south side of Business Loop who kids cannot get to Cosmo Park because I-70 is in the way. So perfect. However, the administration canceled that entire category of grants. So all the funding that had been non-obligated, which meant there wasn't a contract in place that hadn't been spent yet. So it was 60 communities and about $2.5 billion that was canceled. There's a lot of new criteria that's coming out of US Department of Transportation that do not mesh with the previous administration's criteria. Distressed communities, bike and ped assistance, barriers to transportation. Those were all things that our grant hit. The new administration is not looking for grants that hit those criteria. Our thought is our street is such a mess that whatever criteria anybody throws at us, we will have a good argument for funding. Like I said, we did a lot of advocacy, but I just have to speak on behalf of the power of paperwork over politics. We had a signed contract with the city and MoDOT and the consulting firm on file with the US Department of Transportation. So they canceled our grant. Somebody called them up and said, hey, we really don't want to be breach of contract here. And so they reinstated the grant a week later. So it's been off on, off on, off on. It's landed in the on position, and we hope it stays that way. So, oh, this is our chance. This is really our chance. We met with the consultants yesterday. They are going to start surveying the street very soon. They bring out lasers and drones, and they start doing a survey of the entire street to see where we're at. And then we should start public input meetings first quarter next year. So we're super excited about that. We're going to make sure we have people on the street, students on the street, customers, and then people throughout Columbia. We want to have another conversation. We have a pretty good sense of what you guys are going to ask for, sidewalks and crosswalks and what have you. But our thought is this is our one shot at this. So we want a plan that isn't just an okay plan. It's not good enough to just to get us up to the same standards that other streets in Columbia are at. We need this to have something bigger and better and something that makes the street special. We don't know what that is. That's why we've got experts working on this, but we want this to be a street that we're truly proud of, not just a street that works, but something that we can, be happy to bring people in I-70 and get off at Rangeline or Providence and then come into town and go wherever they need to go. Coupled with this is the city also got a Safe Streets for All grant that was not canceled. For a road safety audit. It's again more planning, but it basically takes a deeper dive into what is unsafe about the street. How is it unsafe for people in cars? What causes crashes? How is it unsafe for pedestrians and bikes and what have you? And so that's going to be super valuable information. Now, we know that once we get about 30% into the planning process, we'll have enough data to then start applying for capital improvement grants. Capital improvement is going to be, they're estimating $25 million. It's a lot. It's bigger than our CID. It's basically from Stadium, the other side of Stadium, where the Boone Fire Administration is it? And then all the way to where the new bridge at Conley Road is. So soup to nuts, whole stretch of business loop, fixing it up. So 25 million is what the estimate is now. Who knows what it's going to be in 3 or 4 years. But again, we're hopeful that once we get that plan in place, we can start applying for funding. And we are hopeful that that funding will still exist. There's always money that comes out of the US Department of Transportation. There was in the previous Trump administration, money coming out. So we're hopeful. So that's that's kind of the environment. Now there's all sorts of fun little things going on. If anyone's familiar with Access Arts, it's a great sort of, they're up on Old 63. It's a great sort of community arts um, space. They do classes and so forth. They just had a fundraiser where they had Michelle Spry and Adrian Luther, who's a mural artist. You've probably seen her murals all over town, do a big greetings from Columbia, Missouri postcard. And they put it on the back of Family Pond on the corner of Business Loop and Range Line so that you see it right when you come off I-70. So it's this wonderful welcome, and they just finished, I think, Friday on that. So there's all sorts of, and our thought is, kudos to these folks who went out and did this. But our thought was this would never have been a spot for a mural had it not been for kind of all this work and the community rallying behind us to make this a better street. So we love things like that. Um, Other things you might have heard of, I-70 is getting enlarged. So I know they've been talking about that for what, 30 years now. They're adding lanes. They have assured us that they don't need to take a lot of property on the business loop. They've fit it all in the right of way, at least in our stretch. So we're very happy about that. The city has teamed up with the Chamber of Commerce and MU and a lot of other civic organizations, the CVB, to do an I-70 beautification process. Now, it's a way to make the off-ramps and the overpasses, the bridges, more attractive so that when you come off I-70 or you're just traveling under I-70, it looks better. You've seen this in St. Louis and other cities. I mean, everyone can make their off-ramps and on-ramps pretty. I don't know why we haven't. They started out saying, okay, we're gonna just do they're fixing the interchange, the I-70 63 interchange. They were gonna do one bridge. Well, they started raising money for that one project. And then of course they're like, oh, we've changed our mind. We're doing all of I-70. So now Columbia's got like 5 bridges and overpasses to work with. Great. If we as a community can raise that money, we've got a great design. It's more landscaping. It has space for, MoDOT will do some things, but it has space for like public art or sort of beautification elements. TBD, they don't know what those are yet, but there's space for it. The goal is to let's just get it built. So there'll be landscaping, there'll be better pedestrian access kind of across the bridges over I-70. So we're excited about that. So I don't know, knock on wood, maybe in 10 years, you'll come down I-70, you'll get off on a very attractive exit, you'll come down Range Line, it'll look pretty, there'll be a great mural welcoming you, and then you'll come to a business loop, which looks better than it does now. So that's the dream. So stay tuned. So that's economy, that's the environment. Economy is the other thing we do. So, I think a lot of people look at the business loop and they go, oh, you have so many vacancies, or oh, it's so run down and nothing must be happening there. It's super strong commercial area. And there's like a lot of locally owned businesses who've been here forever. They were there and they know all the Highway 40 stories, and they're like, yeah, we've been here and we're dedicated to the street. So there's all sorts of things. Like the McDonald's, Ray Kroc himself picked this location as the first McDonald's in Columbia. So there's a history on the street. It doesn't feel as historic as downtown, but there's a history on the street. There's a lot of loyalty, and there's a lot of commerce going on. So we're really strong in the home and auto. So we've got a lot of auto service, repair, sales. We've got a lot of home improvement stuff in between Harbor Freight, carpet, tile, paint, what have you. And so we've got this kind of build it, fix it, make it character. We have a lot of men that shop on the street. We have a lot of people that come in work clothes, whether they're linemen at Boone Electric or they're kind of Harbor Freight to buy some tools. They're and they stop and get lunch. So we just have a very different vibe. So when we think of the economy, our goal isn't to add, say, art galleries and wine bars. That's very downtown. But so our thought is, okay, what do we add? how do we add this other layer of economic activity to the street that is in keeping with the character of the street? Our goal isn't to like gentrify the area. We like our vibe. We just want it, to add to it. So the other problem is we don't have a lot of vacancies. I've got like 2 vacancies on the street. So people come and say, "Oh, I want to start a business." I go, "We'd love to have you. No space for you." Parkade Plaza is 100% leased right now, and that's a huge building. Um, so we got a huge grant a few years back to really look at economic development, and um, they looked at small scale manufacturing. So small scale manufacturing is this kind of build it, fix it, make it sort of attitude where people are making things. So Wave Cider, located just off the business loop on Nebraska Avenue, specifically because we started touting this. We're makers on this street. Um, as part of this planning process, MAC Community College said, "Hey, we have this workforce development program. We have a mechatronics lab. We'd like to do a maker space." And so they took our plan and they went and got state funding and they got federal and city funding. So in the basement of Parkade now, there's this huge maker space. So they have woodworking and 3D printing and laser cutting, and they've got picture framing. You can there's a whole textiles area. So they have these industrial sewing machines so you can sew denim or upholstery material. And they have a long arm quilter and an embroidery machine. So it's amazing. And then you could take classes. So we've got businesses who are like, "Oh yeah, I go there and I do my swag. So I have coffee cups with our logo on it, and I make our own t-shirts with our logo on it." And it's a great little community space there. At the same time, on the other end of the business, on the east side by the power plant, Midwest Studios opened up. They are an iteration of the old Cat TV. They took all Cat TV's equipment and it's a volunteer based. And so they have this space and they built photo studios and podcast studios and um, you can go there and you can check out equipment and you can use their editing software. So if you're a photography student at MU and you graduate and you want to do wedding photos and that's your business, you can't afford to set up a studio. You might not be able to afford the editing software because you no longer have the student discount. And you can go there and for a minimal monthly fee, you can use their space. So it's great. And then, of course, what we did right in between the two is we decided to open a commercial kitchen. We did so many, everything we do, we bring in the public and say, "What do you need? What do you need?" Our thought is if we're going to fix up the street, we want to give people what they're asking for, or we've done it wrong. And what everyone asked for was a commercial kitchen. They said there's food trucks, there's caterers, no one can afford to build a kitchen. It's super expensive. So we we built one. It's behind me. Um, we're really located across from Lacoste Chevrolet. We're in the old I-70 auto parts store. Um, and Eldon he rebuilt engines back there. So if you had old engines, he had tool and die stuff, and he had the pulleys on the roof where he could hang the engine. And so, the building was empty because he retired. We have a really great landlord, and we got a bunch of city money, all that ARPA funding. They gave us a nice chunk. We had a lot of stuff we were saving. And so we built a kitchen back here. And it's soup to nuts. I mean, the amount of equipment we have, the hotline, we have 6 working bays. We have a whole room dedicated to a packing house so farmers can come in and do their work. So it's small scale manufacturing. So we've got Three Creek Farm does Missouri brinery, so they make pickles and sauerkraut. So we had them in here the other day, and they make kimchi. So they're doing a lot of fermenting back there. Some days I can't come into work because it smells like garlic and cabbage fermenting. But they were in there jarring up sauerkraut to sell at the farmers market and to sell at Clover's. And then we've got Caged Heat. And so we just got like a whole big pallet full of their like hot sauce bottles. And they just harvested a bunch of peppers and they're making their hot sauce to sell at the farmer's market. So, so we've got probably about 45 or so small businesses working back here. We have, every Friday, Abby does a Swahili food pop-up Friday afternoon. Once we leave the front office, they set up their tables and have food pickups. We do DoorDash out here. It's just so much fun. And the thing is, we don't have any open restaurant space. I mean, and that's super expensive, but we can have this shared space that really works. Okay, I'm looking at all these, Eldon Nichols, yes. Yes, everyone said he rebuilt engines like no one else. Midwest, yes, amazing. Lisa, yes. You guys know my street. I can tell you that much. So we're thrilled that we've it's not everyone can say that we added 50 businesses to our district. That's unheard of. Like when I was downtown, we had a ton of space, but it was never like we didn't have this type of capacity because they're just small little micro businesses. And so we're working on the best ways. They're all independently run. We're working on the best ways to get the word out about all of our food folks. So we have comocooks.com where we list everyone and we basically tell people you just got to click on the thing and go to their Facebook page or their website. You can order online. A lot of them are like you just call them on their cell phone and say, I'd like some, you know, cookies or pulverosa pies or empanadas or whatever. And you just call them on their cell phone and come pick it up. So it's oddly informal. We're trying to find a better way to get the word out to folks, but if you're interested, Como Cooks. We've had a lot of graduates. So Michelle LaFata at Pasta LaFata started in our kitchen. Goldie's Bagels did all the recipe testing in our kitchen. Mahi's Ethiopian Cuisine and Allie A started here. She did Wednesday pop-ups and headlines out the door. Dada Donor started here. And then there's more. We've had a few, but we're very proud. We're very sad when someone leaves, but we're very proud. So that's kind of where we're at in on the economy side of things. It's up and down. Like 2 years ago, all I was doing was building a kitchen. It was very stressful. Now we're moving into we're doing the planning for the street, which is a whole different project, but super exciting. So that is kind of soup to nuts what we're doing. Dave, I noticed you put our website. I very much appreciate that. Yeah, a full business listing. You can sign up for our email newsletter. You can, we post news, things happening. We know soon there's going to be a lot of I-70 impacts in this area. So we'll be posting updates about that as we move forward. So that's kind of what we're doing. I left a lot of time for questions because I know someone's going to ask me about Mizzou North.
Okay, well, Herb, start us out here. Can you
Need
get
to unmute.
unmuted, Herb?
My compliments should be unmuted. I missed you. You've been a persistent and powerful force for beauty in this community for some time in several ways. And I compliment what you did downtown.
Thank you.
I'm having a hard time conceiving of an image for what you hope that I-70 will look like as a package, however. There are different models, there are competing models. You remember Mark Landrum and his idea about how critical it was to integrate residential connection along with commercial matters to a vibrant downtown. But an alternative model for a something like I-70 is what you might call the linear shopping mall. And I don't know where in that you're hoping overall that I-70 will be. Can you paint a big picture of its looks for us?
The business loop or I-70? Business loop,
Business
the
loop.
business, yeah. I think here's the interesting thing. Downtown is an area like a park. Like think of it as a city park. You go, you park, and then you wander around, and there's all sorts of amenities, and you have events and so forth. Um, the business loop is like the Katy Trail or MKT Trail, where it's really long and linear, and you may travel along the whole stretch of it. But the one great thing they did with the MKT Trail is they did all these neighborhood connections. And I see someone that talked about neighborhood connections is they realized, and as someone who cycles into work, I realized that nobody just cycles down the business loop, but they're kind of in the neighborhoods and then they pop in, do their thing, and then they pop back out to the neighborhood, which is great. So the question becomes, how do we make those neighborhood connections stronger? And in the stupidest possible way, we need someone driving down the business loop to be able to identify the difference between driving into a street and driving into a parking lot, because that's very difficult. It's if you've ever driven down the street, it's very hard to figure that out. So part of it is how do you put signage or landscaping or beautification or some sort of infrastructure where it looks like a pathway into the neighborhood or a pathway out of the neighborhood. And I do think that Madison and Parkade with the Bike Boulevard has a little bit about that, because you have a crosswalk, you have ramps, you have all sorts of things that, and I do see the question about accessibility. You know, ramps are critical for and signaled crosswalks are critical for people using wheelchairs. But here's the thing, they help people pushing their kid in a stroller, they help little kids on bikes, they help big kids on bikes. So a ramp is, we can't just think about it, oh, this is like an ADA thing. We got to think about it as this makes it easier for anyone to kind of use our street. You know, and it, the upside is there's a lot of money set aside for ADA improvements on streets. What MoDOT's telling us now is, well, we can't put a crosswalk if there's no sidewalk. Well, it's like, okay, so we're just in this like catch-22. In terms of the big vision, we hired a firm that's doing Country Road 73 in Branson. Branson had like the entrance into their entertainment district, kind of a business loopy looking thing. And so what they did is they did some really clever things. And obviously it's an entertainment district, so there's music oriented. So they had a lot of installations in public art that dealt with music. But what they did is, rather than thinking just a straight sidewalk, they looked at where they could carve out some public space from the frontage. So picture Parkade, there's a sidewalk, but they have a lot of space they don't use. Or the food bank, what if we could carve a little bit and make a little park area, a little seating area, or they had some piece of art that they want to do that's like you walk and it's a piano playing or something. I don't know. That's not business loopy, but it's very Branson. So we chose a company who can help us think outside the box. We can tell them what Columbia is like, but they can say, oh, here's some really good techniques for creating this larger vision and identity. And that's exactly why we selected them, because they got really into what the loop was identity wise and the history of it, and the cruising the loop and all those things, that how it used to be all the travel ports and people would cross the nation through Columbia. So they really liked that. So we're gonna see what they come up with.
Let me go back into the chat. You did talk a bit about Ruth's question about accessibility, but similar to
Yeah.
that, right before that, Bry was making this point, which you kind of made yourself, about getting to and from the loop is getting better, but getting along the loop is the problem.
Yeah, it
So
is.
is and especially where accessibility and
Yeah.
walking and other
Yeah.
bikes and things like that are concerned. So, any more thoughts about how, I don't know, MoDOT, the
To do
70
that.
improvement? I mean, it's just all so many factors running around right now. I
I
mean,
know. I
sounds
know.
like a lot of positive things going on, but that one kind of barrier up and down the loop
Yeah.
seems to be the sticking point here.
So absolutely. And I can say we want continuous sidewalks the whole stretch of the street. We want better bike lanes, pulling the bike lanes out of the gutter. That might require a lane reduction
Yep.
to find the space. So simply put, once we get sidewalks, we can get curb cuts and we can get crosswalks. We can get and we can get mid-block crosswalks, which we don't have. I think we have one, and it was
Yeah.
one that we lobbied MoDOT for to get across to Aldi
Yeah.
and the food bank. So once we get sidewalks, a lot of other things fall into place. Signals, mid-block crosswalks. And when you get landscaping, the traffic slows down a bit, which is better. There are a lot of interesting things you can do with bike lanes. The problem with any bike lane, and you can see this anywhere in town, is once you hit an intersection, it gets kind of messy. So what
Yeah.
happens is you have a bike lane, and then you get to an intersection, it turns into a sharrow because somebody wants to turn it. So it gets a little messy. Some cities have figured that out by they paint, they they have like weird infrastructure things where they can prioritize the bikes or prioritize the pedestrians. Like you let the pedestrians start moving first before you let the traffic go, so they can time the streets. So there's some basic things there. What I can say is we always want to um, ensure that people feel comfortable coming in off a neighborhood and going any length down the street and then going popping back into a neighborhood. So I just, as someone who bikes, you really just kind of figure out like what these little routes are people take. So there's there's well proven infrastructure ways to make that happen that we're dedicated to finding. But like I said, once you get sidewalks and once you get crosswalks and once you get landscaping, that's like night and day improvement from what we have now, which is literally people roaming through parking lots.
Just to follow up on that, now I live pretty close to that area, and I will pop on the business loop to go across the city. I'm wondering if after the 70 improvement, that might not be so common, that people might use 70 and its connectors rather than the drive across the city on the business loop.
That's a great question. And so MoDOT is very aware that everyone in Columbia hops on I-70 to get places, right? Um,
mm,
Not everyone, but
yeah.
more so than like in other areas of the state. Columbians, there's a lot of local traffic on I-70.
Okay.
And so, I mean, there's going to be so much construction for the next couple of years. We think a lot of people are going to say we're going to get a business loop instead, right? Um, Here's the thing: we don't mind people using our street to cut across town. What we mind is people going 55 miles an
Right.
hour down the street and being disrespectful to people trying to like just go to work.
Right.
Um, so again, though, if you can do all these traffic calming things that like, I can help you, kitchen, it's keep on going back, turn to the left, there's a sign.
Very busy.
I know. Um, yeah, so if just keep going. people walk into our office and they're like super confused. And then the minute they hit the kitchen, they're like, oh, I see. We think that a more attractive street, more amenities and so forth, it'll actually be so much better in terms of traffic calming. You're welcome. Um, and that way you can still use this as a way to get across town, but it'll just be more pleasant, and you may not be as like stressful trying to get through that light at range line.
And before I leave the chat and go to David Mallory, I will say that there are a couple questions about Ellis Fischel, Mizzou
There
North.
always are.
Any latest word, great hopes?
We have no idea. We have talked time and time again. There was a moment where they were going to sell it. And I think the city had kind of gotten them to that point. And then what happened was COVID hit, and every major project anybody had just stopped. The university is very reluctant to sell land and sell property. The problem is it's like only a mile from campus, but nobody wanted to be at Mizzou North. So it's not like anybody wants to be there. It's 30 acres. It's got infrastructure. It's by I-70.
15, 20 minutes ago.
What was that?
And Duncan especially was so eager to come in, he was leaping and throwing himself at this door. The other dogs were near the porch, and even Leo came out from under the porch.
I think we have a different conversation going on here. Dave Taylor.
Sorry. I didn't realize I was unmuted.
And he's our webmeister. Okay, well, I think you've told us the story on Mizzou North.
We would love a mixed-use development there. There's a housing shortage here. We would love some sort of housing, some extra retail. I'd love some little shops to put people in. I got people in the kitchen who could move into a tiny little restaurant. We could do, a lot of cities do those like field case food courts, like outdoor food courts where they're very small, and small businesses can. There are so many ideas. But we just need to figure out how to get a hold of that property, or how to have the university do what we want them to on the property.
Okay, let's kind of lobby the university. Dave Mallory, you've been very patient.
Thanks. I'm curious, where's are you your group and your organization a department of the city, or are you independent? And if independent, where does your funding come from?
What a great question. So we are a community improvement district, which is under state law, local government. So just like the downtown CID. So we're a local government, which means we're a taxing entity. So we have an assessment on the properties on the street, and we have a 0.5-cent sales tax on all the sales on the street, except auto sales, which are exempt. So it's exactly the same as downtown. The mall and all the Walmarts, I think, do a penny sales tax per dollar, although I think the mall's a bit more. At any rate, it's all the users and all the people that on the street and the users of the street are the ones paying for it. Our budget's about $300,000 a year. It's not a lot, which is why we really need the city's help. But here's the thing, because we're local government, like everything is on our website. Like we post the minutes, all our meetings are public. And every planning process we do, we talk to people like you guys and say, please come tell us what you want. So we work closely with the city, but we are an independent entity.
Okay, I have a question. It's about the experts that you bring in. I spent a decade in Berkeley, California, and there were some industrial areas, I'm thinking Emeryville, etc., that got transformed into, well, I guess gentrified areas, certainly commercially, usually by attracting, I don't know, a Trader Joe's, or there'd be some kind of anchor thing, and then that would be followed by some shops and cafes and parks and things that just
St.
made it
Louis did it with IKEA, the IKEA in St.
the
Louis was
IKEA
that.
area. So, I mean, I really like MACC there, but when you talk about the Mizzou North site and others, I see a lot of potential, but unless potential gets started and things happen, then you just have sort of discombobulated pieces that are I really liked it when the farmers market was at Parkade. That was closer
Oh
to my
yeah,
neighborhood,
yeah,
and
yeah,
and
yeah.
there were a lot of nice things going on in the area at the time. But then those things come and go. I mean, the business loop seems to be the kind of place where things come and go an awful lot. So I don't know if that's a good thing, if that could be changed.
I
If
I
if
think
you
we've
have
got
to
more
go ahead.
consistency in our businesses than you may think.
Yeah.
So you think Dave Briggs, Flooring America, and Carpet World and Sherwin-Williams have been around for
No,
ages.
those kind of businesses, I'm sure, but I'm talking about things that attract people in to hang out, let's say.
Oh, yeah, we're not a big hangout street. I
No.
know that's not at all. We get a lot of families for our family fun fest that we do, but
Right.
we're people will go to dive bar and see live music and hang out inside and do all that stuff, but not we don't have any place to hang out, which is
Right.
a problem. Um, but here's how St. Louis did it with their IKEA area. They did a TIF, a tax increment financing district, where I mean I could go into that, but basically it's future property and sales tax go back into developing projects. And so they got IKEA to come in, and IKEA gets like a lot of incentives to get, they say they get a lot of like, here, we'll give you a lot of these funds to build your place and start up because you're the first one in and you're going to be our anchor. And then like 5 years down the road, the person who comes in 5 years down the road gets a little bit of it stuff, but by then you've got an area that everyone wants to be, so they don't need the incentives. And that's how incentives should
Right.
work, is
Yeah.
you use it to bring in like first in, making the big risk. And so that's what the Mizzou North place could be like. Imagine a Costco in there and they would be like the first in. Um, you know, it
Yeah.
is still a big box store with a big old parking lot, which is not super exciting, but it would definitely bring people to the street.
And it depends on what kind of cafes and restaurants are surrounding it too. I mean,
Yes. Yes. Yeah. That's the thing. You can have an anchor, but if it's not anchoring anything,
right.
it's uninteresting.
And really the landscaping and everything was conducive to that in the Emeryville area too. It
Yeah.
was a pleasant place to hang out, and I could see
Yeah.
that. Where is that
Yeah.
pop-up park, Kathy asks us?
Oh, it is 807 East Business Loop. So it is it's right next to the Crazy Good Burritos and Dave Briggs Flooring America. Just about to the intersection of Range Line and Business Loop, near the Columbia
About right about
mural.
near the
Yeah.
Columbia mural right there. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good area. Herb.
I see a particularly great challenge in beautifying the far east of Business 70. I'm not going to talk about the various things there, particularly some of which are rather nice, like the senior center. But how the heck do we beautify our power plant?
So I've been doing a lot of research on Highway 40, and the story of the power plant is interesting. If you actually look at it, it's got like the old brick building is very nice looking. It would be a great sort of the way you take an old factory and turn it into something interesting if you took off the kind of metal sheeting around it. And then I've seen so many cities do so many interesting art stuff with unused smokestack. There's some city I went to, Winnipeg, where they put like public art. It was like big tulips coming out. It was like it turned into a vase. So, but then like Moore's Lake is still there, and it was a great lake, and the guy who owned it would efficient and you'd sell ice from it. But then when they built the power plant, they go, this is a great place to put like coal ash. And they just like bulldoze coal ash into the water, which is just bizarre. I mean, it used to be a picnic area and people would go there and yeah. And so the city was looking at remediating that lake, and it's like a $7 million undoing this. The business loop is nothing but undoing bad decisions made in the 50s and 60s.
Right.
So, is there a way of getting information? Yes. So if you go to the loop, como.com, we have an events calendar. If you scroll to the bottom, there's a link to events calendar. We have a Facebook and an Instagram link too, and we post up on that. We have classes at VidWest and the Mac Lab Makerspace. We have events, we've got live music. So everything is just on that list. So yeah, City Museum in St. Louis. That would be great. Somebody work on that. Who's volunteering for that one? Show of hands.
I don't know if I'm
Yeah.
volunteering, but I always thought that I was destined for the business loop, the senior center. But now that I've heard about the shared kitchen and all these other things, I think I might have more choices.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it's still an exciting area, very important to many of us for one reason or another. And so if there are no more questions, I think we'll let our guest off about 5
Yeah.
minutes early. And
David,
yeah.
I had a question about how much the shared kitchen is being used.
Or how it works, a little more on how it works. Yeah.
So it's like the other ones. It's a kind of a membership. So we have tiers and you pay by the month. It's essentially $17 an hour. So the first tier, you get 10 hours a month for $170. So you can open a business here, pay all your like fees, city license fees and so forth for $170 a month, which is insane because kitchens are much more expensive than that. But we got people at tier 2, so it's basically how much time you use. It's open 24 hours. People have like key cards and they can come in. We have cameras in the place. There have been times where we're booked. Someone will be teaching a cooking class. It'll be a farmer's market day. People are in here, but there's always capacity in there. I'm thinking we probably got 2 people working in there now. And we have 6, maybe 7 bays for people to work in. So, it's great. The limiting factor is storage. We just don't have a lot of storage. But at 1 at night after bar close, all those food trucks are in here like washing their dishes, and beforehand they get their ice, they come back and they dump their water, wash their dishes. So it's a interesting little industrious place.
Yeah, it does sound industrial. It sounds like
Yeah.
it. So is it a money-making thing?
Oh, so the great question. So our job is to really create jobs rather than make a profit because we are government. However, we broke even last year and we expect to make we expect to have revenues exceed our expenses this coming year. So fingers crossed on that.
And you're up to capacity or expanding, one or the other at all times.
Yeah, we can always squeeze someone else in there. So, guys, thank you for having me. This is great. I always like talking about what we're up to. I think most of the things happen inside buildings, so it's always helpful for me to explain what's happening inside these buildings. But please spread the word,
Yeah, I think that's part of what has to be done. You guys are working so hard doing what you do. You don't have any time to tell people about it.
True.
And we assume that those food trucks come from, God knows
Somewhere.
where. And now we're learning how we're able to have such good ones so close by and in such good, safe operation. It's not by accident, it's by good planning by your group. I guess increasing in that direction the kinds of businesses for our city, the more the better, and the transport and the beautification. I don't know how important beautification is to me. I really want to have a good place to hang out. Doesn't have to be pretty, it has to be safe, but but
Pretty helps.
yeah,
Trees,
pretty,
flowers. People like to hang out where there's flowers.
that's true. A few spots have to be good hangout
Shady,
spots.
shade would be lovely.
Yes, that could be that could be some work there. um I'm a gardener myself, so I like to think about things in that way too. So
Nice.
um we thank you
All
so
right.
much, Carrie, and we it's going to be exciting years with 70 and your $25 million plans. So we hope to hear an update on this pretty soon.
Stay tuned. All right, guys. Thank you again, and have a great weekend.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Carrie.
Well, that was really delightful. I love this city, and Business Loop is certainly part of it. And I liked hearing what I heard today. It was really inspiring, I think, especially hearing about that kitchen.